My name is Sheldon, the son of 10 generations of hardworking fishermen, shipbuilders, and tradespeople from a small, beautiful village in Nova Scotia, turned finance guy and entrepreneur. And I'm here to deliver a message to every member of Parliament, but also Canadians, on both sides of the aisle, from one heartbroken and disenchanted Canadian citizen born and raised. I don't belong to a party. I've looked at different ones over the years, and like many Canadians, I've come to feel that politics has become less a calling and more a contest. A game where the goal too often becomes winning rather than serving. Canadians are tired. We are financially stretched, disillusioned, and unfortunately, divided. We don't feel heard anymore, not just by politicians, but even by each other. Many of us feel like we're being managed, not represented. Let me be clear, I do not expect perfection from politicians. People make mistakes. That's part of being human, and it's forgivable and relatable. But when harm comes not from honest mistakes, but from calculated and deliberate choices that mislead, divide, or hide the truth, that points to something deeper, a question of character. When I look at the recent federal budget and the broader direction of our politics, I feel deep concern. Not just because of the numbers, which will decimate our economy, but because of the way the story is told or not told, because of how costs get shifted forward, how language softens hard realities, and how citizens are asked to sacrifice when so many have nothing left to give. At this point, it feels less like we're making national choices and more like we're being cornered by them. And while I believe there are good people in every party, I also believe that far too many in politics have become more concerned with building and protecting their careers than serving and honoring their conscience. Our job as citizens, and theirs as leaders, is not to signal virtue, but to live it and find ways to implement it, to have a moral compass that points towards service, not self-preservation. Somewhere along the way, we stopped talking about one word that matters most: trust. Trust is not earned through credentials or polished resumes. It's earned through the quiet consistency of character and servitude. You can hold degrees from Oxford or Harvard, sit on international boards, or manage vast portfolios, but if you don't genuinely care for the people you represent, those credentials become a sophisticated mask and a way to sound intelligent while losing touch with integrity. Would any of us tell our children that their minds and hearts aren't worth much because they never sat on an international board or went to an elite school? Of course not, I hope. A prime minister can hire every expert and advisor in the country, the economists, the strategists, the scientists, but heart cannot be outsourced. If we had to choose between heart and skill, knowing that skill can be hired, but integrity cannot, would we really choose skill? Some of the most admired leaders in the world have shown what conviction can do without elite credentials. Now, forgive me if I butcher these names, but Jose Mujica, the former president of Uruguay, was a farmer who lived simply and donated most of his salary. His honesty made him beloved far beyond borders. I heard of him many moons ago. Václav Havel of the Czech Republic was a playwright and dissident who never claimed to be a polished statesman, but led his country out of tyranny with moral clarity. And Lech Walesa in Poland was an electrician who became a Nobel laureate and a president through courage and conscience, not pedigree and resume. These are reminders that leadership is not about titles or schooling. Is it about heart, humility, and the courage to serve and also speak up. We wouldn't choose a spouse, a business partner, or a caregiver for our children based on credentials alone. We want to look someone in the eye and look for proof of a moral character, a moral center, the micro-expressions and tonality that show us if they're authentic. Why should politics be much different? At the same time, I'm deeply saddened by what politics and the media around it have done to us as a people, including myself at times. Somewhere along the way, we've stopped seeing each other as neighbors and started seeing each other as opponents. We've been trained to throw labels before we listen. Sheep, conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer, snowflake, radical, populist, fascist. Balanced conversation, the kind that used to define us, has been replaced by moral one-upmanship and applause lines and hot mic drops, and calling each other uneducated. That's why I'm writing this letter, and why I'll be launching a space for balanced conversation, a place for Canadians to meet on common ground again. Because the cure for division is not silence, it's respect. I'm going to rebuild myself from scratch and the conversation I offer to others, and I am asking politicians and Canadians to do the same. And still, despite all of this, I believe with everything in me that Canadians are extraordinary at heart. We are the kind of country that still apologizes when someone bumps into us, that stops to push a stranger's car out of the snow, that lends a shovel before being asked, and that finds humor in hardship and grace in defeat, that believes decency matters more than ideology and fairness more than fanfare and likes. That's the Canada I know, the Canada I love. And that spirit is still here, even if the noise has buried it for a while. We're at a crossroads. At this point, it feels like we're being asked to choose between two parties that both have soul searching to do. But there's a clear question before us, because we have to choose one of the two main parties most of the time in most countries. Who can we truly trust? The truth is, even though slogans and branding can impression us or push us in a direction for a moment in time's vote, trust can't be restored by branding and slogans. It only comes from character demonstrated. When an elected official decides to abandon the people who placed their trust in them and switch sides in Parliament, it strikes at the very heart of public faith. It shows that self-preservation has replaced conviction, that holding on to a title and a salary matters more than holding on to principle. Few actions make it clearer that someone is serving their position instead of their people. No Canadian should admire or reward that kind of decision, not even when the move happens to favor the side they support. Respect belongs to those who stand by their beliefs honestly, not to those who trade them for advantage. Every thought we hold, every word we speak, ripples outward like a butterfly effect that touches our family, our friends, and our country. We cannot allow our well-being or our future to be crushed by fear or by the cynical games of those who treat leadership and parliament like theater. We have to think deeper, feel deeper, and vote deeper, not just react to what we're told to react to. None of us ever wake up intending to make a bad choice at the ballot box. Every Canadian I know votes with hope that they're helping, not harming. But after years of being told to sacrifice more while seeing little real change, many people have lost faith in the government's direction. It feels, for a lot of us, like we've run out of patience and options. I still respect the intent behind every vote ever cast. What we need now is to bring that same good intent into our conversations, to listen more carefully, to question more deeply and patiently, beyond the snippets, and to care enough not to let frustration do the thinking for us. I respect every voter in this country, every single one, for voting out of conviction, for voting in the way they believed genuinely was best at the time. Even when we allowed ourselves to be influenced by the noise, by endless talk of Trump, Trudeau, vaccines, masks, carbon taxes, housing bubbles, or whatever the latest flashpoint happened to be, I know most of us weren't acting out of hate. We were acting out of hope, fear, confusion, and love and protection for our families. And that deserves respect for everyone, even when the end result strayed from its well-meaning beginnings. Now it's time to step back from those distractions and remember who we are to each other. Neighbors first, Canadians always, because the legacy we leave our children depends on it.